Hi and welcome back to Apple Fortree. Despite the fact that for most of us here in the UK there is still a little bit of snow on the ground, today is the spring equinox, which is the first official day of spring. That's today when I'm filming this, not today when you're watching it. But anyway, I always think spring is a really fantastic time to check in with yourself, to recap over the first quarter of the year and to set some intentions moving forward for the rest of the year. So it's been a couple of months now since Veganuary, so I thought it was the perfect time to check in with you, answer any lingering questions you may have and make some plans for the rest of the year. Let's get into it. So here we are coming to the end of March and the buzz of Veganuary has worn off a little bit. And I remember all too well from a few years ago when I did my own Veganuary. Throughout the whole of January there's so much support, there's so much buzz, particularly this year with it being the biggest year of participants. They've had the most publicity, everybody seems to have heard of it. Of course, if you signed up officially you received the daily email every single day prompting you, encouraging you, and there have been a number of emails since Veganuary ended, but nothing like the daily emails and nothing like the buzz and the sense of camaraderie that comes with joining Veganuary. And I know for myself it was about this time that it started to get a little bit real and a little bit harder, because that the initial buzz and the initial novelty had kind of worn off, and now we're getting into the serious nitty-gritty, the hard work of actually living and being vegan day to day, month after month after month. And I know that can come with its own set of challenges. Everybody thinks that going vegan is actually the hardest thing to do, and it's really not. Going vegan is just literally the first teeny tiny baby step, the tipping point of you making a little stand for yourself, for your principles. The hard work comes with actually maintaining that month after month after month, year after year after year. It's probably around this time that some of you have seen old habits start creeping in. You may have started going back to your previous way of eating and cooking, and you might just need a little bit of support and hand holding to prompt you into moving forward with the intentions you set back in January. And honestly, I know exactly how you feel. I've been there. When I went vegan back in 2015, I was so unsure that I'd be able to stick to it that it took me months and months and months to actually tell anybody. Even my own family weren't fully aware of what was happening. They knew that I'd started to eat slightly differently. They knew I'd started to prepare food differently, but they weren't 100% fully aware of what was happening. In the past, I have been known to do things on a whim, and I have been known to go with fads and things like that. And I knew for myself that veganism did not fall into that category, but in order for me to be able to prove that to everybody else and to feel confident in what I was doing, I decided that it was literally on a need-to-know basis, and unless a conversation came up or an absolute yes or no answer was needed, I just got on with everything I was doing, and it worked for me. And I know that's not the case now, especially with so many participants, as I say, pledging publicly to Veganuary this year. That's changed the dynamic a little bit and people are much more aware of it now. The chances are that if you were to say to somebody this January that you were participating in Veganuary, they probably had a good idea of what that meant, even if they didn't know the finer details of it. Throughout January is probably one of the easiest times because everybody around you is setting the intention, they're setting New Year's resolutions, not necessarily to go vegan, but usually people are setting intentions to eat healthier. They're looking at making lifestyle changes, that they're looking at taking care of themselves a little bit better. So Veganuary kind of ties in with that, and I assume that a lot of people think that it's going to be something that falls by the wayside, as so many people's New Year's resolutions do. And for some people that is obviously true, but I do know that there are a lot of people out there that are wanting to stick to their vegan principles, everything they've learned over the last few months, everything they've seen, everything they've worked really hard towards. They do want to try and keep that going. It's just that they feel like they've lost a little bit of momentum. And the beginning of spring is the perfect time to try and get back on track. So how do we do that? I've got a couple of tips for you that might help. So number one is always go back to your why. Perhaps you saved the emails from Veganuary. If you did, go back through some of those, go back through some of the resources, check in with their website, see how things are progressing. The website is obviously up all year round, it's just the daily emails that stop. So there's probably lots of recipes and articles and things on there that maybe you didn't get around to reading in January when you were really busy at the start of your vegan transition. So maybe go back through the website, take a look at some of those resources and really remind yourself of why you decided to embark on this in the first place. And I think that's always a really good way to solidify the intention within you and to give a little bit of support and a little bit of backbone to what it is you're trying to achieve, which hopefully the goal of that is to continue to be vegan throughout the rest of the year and beyond. There are tons of resources out there. Just take a little bit of time, exactly like you did in January, to go back through some of those, to maybe discover some new things that you hadn't yet seen, that you hadn't yet read about, and just go a little bit deeper. Tip number 2 is that Veganuary very much focuses on the food, which is definitely the number one thing that everybody should tackle first. It's the thing that will make the single most impact when going vegan, and it's definitely the right place to start. But moving forward into that, as I'm sure we're all aware now, veganism is not a diet, it's not a fad diet, it's not a trend. It is literally a way of life, and I think at this stage is when we need to start bringing some of those ideas and concepts into the idea of being vegan. So up to now it may be that you had just concentrated purely on the food and you hadn't really thought about a bigger picture, which does cause a little bit of disconnect, and that alone can be a reason why people find it difficult to keep going and keep the momentum. So now's the time to start looking at bringing a lot of those elements together, and that's things like not only how do you spend your money in terms of what food do you buy, but how do you spend your money in terms of clothing, in terms of personal products, in terms of toiletries, cleaning products, household products, even things like furnishings, entertainment. All those kind of things are also very much part of being vegan, and it might now, if you've managed to stick to the food element for this long, now it's a really good time to start looking at all those other things. And just as with the food element, we're not saying we expect you to throw everything out, to discard everything, to get rid of perfectly usable goods. So it's just literally setting that intention. So for example, maybe the next time you buy washing up liquid, or the next time you buy a shampoo or a toothpaste, are we looking for products that are cruelty-free, vegan, safe for the environment, or are we just purely on autopilot, picking up tried and tested brands that we've always used, things that we've always had, things that we know work for us, and not really looking into the bigger picture? And obviously spring is a fantastic time. People like to spring clean, people like to freshen up their homes, people are thinking about possibly changing colour schemes. So it is a brilliant time to start looking, particularly around the home, particularly at your cleaning products, particularly at your homewares, and not even just from a point of view of veganism, but in a wider point of view of low waste, of low impact. And of not just buying for the sake of buying, of not just buying trends, of not just buying fast fashion, fast accessories and things that are going to need to be discarded in a few months because they were naff quality basically. So it all encompasses. So that's a really good way, if you have managed to stick to the food element of veganism, starting to solidify some of these other elements is a really good way of bringing it together and strengthening your priorities moving forward. So what if you didn't manage to stick to being vegan beyond the end of January? You may possibly be one of those people who allowed time or convenience or even other people's energies to influence the intention that you'd set for yourself. But somewhere inside you there's still that little spark of compassion that was ignited and excited for doing Veganuary. And if that's you and you fall into that category, then I would just say all is not lost. You can choose right now, today, your very next meal to be vegan. You don't need to make a public pledge on Facebook. You don't need anybody's permission. You don't need to run out and empty your fridge and empty your cupboards and start anew. You can literally start today with your very next meal. And that brings me nicely onto my third tip, which is embracing seasonal foods. So here in the UK, we've had a pretty crappy winter. It's been really cold and miserable. We've had some really, really horrendous weather. And if you're anything like me, during the winter months, I literally just want to eat good food and hibernate, no question. I struggle with dark mornings, dark evenings, the wet weather. All I want to do is comfort eat, and that alone for some people could have been reason enough to abandon the whole idea of veganism. Now here we are, we find ourselves in March and all the spring produce is just starting to emerge, and it's a fantastic time to pick up exactly where you left off, even if you managed one day of being vegan. Now is the time to pick up and keep going. Over the next few weeks, we're all going to be starting to think much more about eating salads and smoothies, eating lighter meals. You may have booked your holidays for the summer. You may be thinking about losing some weight. You may be feeling a little bit sluggish and a little bit stodgy after winter. Spring produce is a fantastic time to eat vegan food, and there are an abundance of fabulous spring recipes. I'll link to some of my own in the description box below, but please take the time to explore some new recipes, some new blogs, some new recipe videos, and really embrace everything about the coming season. I really do think that spring and summer are some of the easiest seasons to be vegan, and it's a really great time to get into the kitchen, get out into the garden, start experimenting with some new flavours and some new ingredients, and really revive your excitement for good whole foods, for eating the rainbow and stocking up on all that amazing vegan spring produce. And I've got a final bonus tip for those of you that have really let things fall by the wayside, and that is to fast forward 9 months to December 2018. When you're thinking about setting your intentions for the next year, when you're reflecting back on the year that you've had, what do you want to see? What do you want to have achieved this year? What do you want to be proud of? What feeling do you want to end the year on? Now, for most of us, I'm thinking we're going to want to feel some kind of sense of achievement, like we've made a difference, like we've made improvements, like we're in a better place than we were at this time last year. And that work for you could start now. There are still 9 months of the year left. You've still got time to turn it around. You've still got time to commit to something, to see something through. It's no good waiting until we get to December and thinking shoulda, woulda, coulda. There's always next year. The time is now to embrace the challenge that you set for yourself, make the commitment to look after yourself better, to be around long into the future to look after your family, to really make a positive impact on your home, on your family, on your community, on the wider environment and on the world at large. I promise you, if you can stick to the intentions you set for yourself in January 2018, by the time you get to January 2019, the only regret you'll have is that you didn't do it sooner. As always, I'm here for you, and I'd love to continue the conversation in the comments down below. Please pop any lingering questions you've still got in there, and I'll do my absolute best to answer you as honestly and as quickly as I can. My intention for this year was to help as many people as possible go vegan and stay vegan. And if all it takes to do that is to answer one simple question for you, then I'd love to help. Until next time, thanks for watching. I'll speak to you soon. Hi, I just wanted to jump on and give a huge thank you and a huge shout out to one of my supporters, Labrador Lovable. Now she's the first person to kindly donate a coffee to me on ko-fi.com. Now if you've never heard of this platform, I'm just going to show you a little run through here, but it's a fantastic way to show your support for your favourite YouTubers and content creators. It really is so important for us to let us know that there is somebody out there that appreciates our content and that we can be sure to make the content that you're interested in supporting moving forward. Now it's really easy to do, it's all done through PayPal, and you can choose to support either publicly or privately. As a huge thank you to you, if you do choose to make a public pledge, I would love then to give you a shout out either in my next YouTube video or on my next Instagram post. There is a little space here to leave a personal message, and if you do that and make sure that you leave me either your Instagram or your YouTube account name, I'll be happy to give you a shout out. So not only is it a fantastic way to show your support, but it's also a cheeky and cheap way to get a little bit of cheap publicity for yourself and your channel. The link is in the description box below. Thanks so much for your support. I'll speak to you soon.